Palantir is my second largest holding, and it's one I research a lot and talk about a lot on this channel. But it seems like now, smart money are making sure they load up on shares. Today we will look at which individuals and which institutional owners have been buying Palantir and who actually owns the most shares. This channel now has memberships enabled, and some of the perks include early access to videos, guaranteed comment replies, loyalty badges, which are pretty fun, honestly. There are some Alex Karp ones in there, and special mentions in descriptions, all depending on which tier. So if you do want to support the channel, that would be a fantastic way, but absolutely no pressure, of course. So what does institutional ownership mean? Well, institutional ownership of a stock refers to the percentage of the company shares that are owned by large organizations, institutions. These are things like mutual funds, pension funds, insurance companies, and other large entities. Think of the likes of Vanguard, BlackRock, Legal & General. And these institutions invest into stocks on behalf of their clients or members. So they invest large amounts of money on the behalf of other people. So when we say that a stock has high institutional ownership, it means that these big global organizations are buying the stock. So in this case, Palantir, for their own fund. And I suppose indirectly that is a way of them indicating that they have high confidence about that stock. It can suggest to us on the outside, us old retail investors over here that unfortunately don't own as many shares as some of these big guys, which we'll look at in a minute. But it can suggest to us that the stock is being perceived as a very stable investment with good growth prospects ahead. It can also lead to increased liquidity and potentially more stable stock prices due to the long-term investment horizons of these organizations. And I don't know about you, but a more stable Palantir stock could be quite nice because at the moment it has been absolutely crazy. Of course, with anything, we then have to look at the other side of the story. When these big institutions buy a lot of a stock and own a lot of the stock, that means that there are less shares to be available for myself and you, for retail investors to buy and sell. This is technically called like a less public float. And then when there are fewer shares available, that basically has a knock-on effect as to how much the stock is impacted when buys and sells actually happen. So like we just said, when we notice that institutions are buying and loading up on a particular stock, it is a sign that they are confident in that company's growth prospects, because ultimately their primary job, their only job really, is to make sure they are making a good return, making money for their clients. So they are going to be buying the companies that they think are going to do that the best. This can also have a positive impact on the stock. It can make the stock price go up, and that is because large institutions are purchasing a lot of shares in one go, and we know that the stock is moved by supply versus demand. And also when other institutions and retail investors see big organizations like Vanguard, like BlackRock loading up on a particular company, they might be thinking, they might have a little bit of FOMO and think, actually, I need to take a look at this. I think I should buy this as well. And the flip is true as well. When we see institutional ownership falling, or we see particular institutional owners selling their shares, that can be a sign that they are, something's changed in their investment thesis and they are now lacking confidence for this position moving forward. Again, that can then lead to decreased demand for the stock, which can have a knock-on impact to the stock price and cause it to fall. So you can really start to see how institutional investors play a really significant role in the stock market. And when they decide to buy or sell, their buying and selling activity, this can have a real ripple effect throughout the market. But of course, you don't have to agree with institutional owners. You could see that Vanguard are purchasing a particular company that you just don't have conviction for. Or on the flip, you could see that a company is selling a position that, again, you don't want to sell. For example, Berkshire Hathaway don't own Tesla. Tesla is my largest position in my portfolio behind Palantir. If I were just to blindly copy, then I wouldn't have Tesla in my portfolio. Now let's talk about who actually owns Palantir and who's been buying recently. Palantir currently have 1,237 institutional owners, and these shareholders, these institutions own a total of 829,005,510 shares of Palantir. I don't know about you, but that is, a few more than I own. The institutional shares, and this is long only, and we'll explain what that means in just a minute, stand at 823,148,287 shares. And that equates to about 37.83% of the entire Palantir shares. There are some other positions as well, but they are short-only shares. So when we say long-only shares, we are referring to being in a long position. And that means that these institutions that have purchased Palantir have done so with the expectation that they will hold the stock and the stock price will increase over time. They are not short in the stock. But this percentage doesn't include 13D or 13G filings. But basically, all you have to be concerned at for the main point of this video is that institutional ownership of Palantir has been and looks to continue to be going up. It's increasing. And you can see that visually here. Right now, we are, by the looks of it, at the highest point, the highest percentage of institutional ownership that's ever happened since Palantir has been a public company. That is indicating that there is a lot of purchasing by these large institutional owners. And why is that? Well, that's because they are thinking that they need this company in their funds. We'll talk about why that might be in just a minute, but this is a very bullish sign in my opinion. And look, it's trending upwards. Again, there's something that's happening in the future. We don't know when. We'll talk about that in a minute as well, that could be causing this to go up, and it could continue to push it up further in the future. I made one of these videos a while ago looking at a similar thing, and I managed to get the screenshot that I actually used in that video. So it's interesting to see how the institutional ownership has changed over time. So this that you're seeing right now was the Palantir ownership breakdown for January the 10th, 2023. And what you can see is, obviously according to this source, you do get some changes depending on where you're looking, but you get a rough idea. The institution ownership was 33.9%. And you can see the general public, individual insiders, public companies, and state or government here as well. However, institutions are now 35.9%. So it's definitely gone up. And you can pause the video and flick between the two images if you want to see the change now. So institutional ownership is going up. That's clear. But who owns the most Palantir shares? Because it's not actually an institution. Pause this video right now, drop a comment. Let me know who you think owns the most Palantir shares. I hope that was enough time, if anyone even commented. But the person, the individual that owns the most Palantir shares as of the latest information that I could find is actually Peter Thiel. Now, you might have heard his name referenced in relation to just the investor world in general, or more specifically in terms of Palantir. He is one of the founders of Palantir along with Alex Karp. He is no longer, the CEO. That's obviously Alex Karp now, but he is still very much involved. He is the largest shareholder too. And according to this website, Peter, good old Peter here, owns 8.1%. 8%, 8.1, whatever it may be, doesn't sound like an awful lot, but you can imagine, you can see here actually how many shares that means he owns. So can you imagine if he has most of these shares around like the low price range is his average price, and then it goes up to $20, which it currently is right now. How much profit has he got there? It's insane when you look at the numbers. And then the second largest owner of Palantir is actually an institution. Again, let me know who you think it is in the comments below. It is Vanguard. Vanguard Group own the second largest amount of Palantir shares, and they are the largest institutional owner. After Vanguard, the next largest institutional owner of Palantir is BlackRock, which isn't that surprising given just how big of a company, an organization they are. And you'll see here actually we've got some other names. We've got Morgan Stanley, which I'm sure you're familiar with, State Street Corp. We've even got Legal & General down here. And interestingly, Cathie Wood, ARK Invest is now on this list as well. But I just want to include this image here where you can see the top direct holders. So these are the individuals. These are people that are associated with Palantir, I believe they all are, that have a lot of Palantir shares. Peter Thiel is at the top there, as we just said, followed by Alex Karp. I was actually quite surprised that Alex doesn't have the most shares, but I guess it makes sense. Peter was also an early founder. Alexandra Moore. We have lots of names here that you will recognize. It's clear that institutions have been purchasing more Palantir shares, hence why that institutional ownership has increased. But let's actually see who has been increasing their Palantir holdings. So we've got Jane Street Group here. Jane Street Group's got a call type on this, so we're going to ignore that one, but a long position as well that they have been increasing. And you can see that file date was on the 15th of November 2023. So this is all happening very recent, but it doesn't update in real time, if that makes sense. We have some other names here. I'm not going to talk about all of them. We can see in red that indicates that that company have sold shares. Obviously, people will look to take profit as well. We've got Renaissance Technologies here. So Renaissance Technologies, in case you didn't know, are a hedge fund, and they specialize in systematic trading using quantitative models derived from mathematical and statistical analysis. That was a mouthful, but they've been buying Palantir. On the 14th of November, so what was that? That was literally 2 days ago. 14th of November, they filed a 13F HR form, and they were basically in that form disclosing 43,604,653 shares of Palantir. So that represents right there that they have increased their ownership, their stake in Palantir by 9.56%. That is really significant. That's a substantial percentage increase. And then we got State Street Corp, who have reported a 3.35% increase in ownership of Palantir. We've got Volveridge, I hope I'm saying that right, Investment Management. They've increased their ownership by 52.45% during the quarter. Over 50% increase. That's so significant. They obviously feel very confident about the position in the future. So why are they doing this? Why are so many large organizations increasing their Palantir shares? Well, there's obviously many reasons as to why. You know, they might be doing research, they might have liked the Q3 earnings, they might have seen other catalysts coming up, AIP demand, Fed start. There's all these things that they might be researching that they think actually this makes Palantir a very, very strong company right now and has very, very good growth prospects in the future. But I think more importantly than that is that they are loading up ready for that S&P 500 inclusion. Soon, as we heard from earnings, Palantir will be included in the S&P 500. We don't know when that will be, but it is happening. It looks to be happening. And so I think these large institutions are loading up at the current prices ready for that inclusion, because I imagine when that inclusion happens, Palantir, obviously the stock price might increase based on that. And also I think this institutional ownership will then only continue to increase once Palantir is included in the S&P 500. Now, obviously, I don't know that for sure. I'm kind of speculating, but I do get the sense that the institutional ownership has been increasing as we've been nearing that eligibility criteria being ticked off for the S&P 500 inclusion. Let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comments below. And also, whilst you're there, maybe drop your average Palantir price. I know that a lot of people have really low average prices. Some people have got in more recently. I still think, in my opinion, just my opinion, not financial advice, of course, I think we're still in early days, but obviously you've got to make your own investment decisions. But let me know, what's your average price of Palantir? Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one very shortly.